Our general booking requests get things that are like, I would like to book December 10th with you with no other information, which is going right in the trash. We are indie rock band in the variety of War on Drugs or Kurt Vile. See below for additional info, and please let us know if there's any avails we can look at. And then press, performance history, links, description of the band. Just make it look clean, make it not too long. Make sure that you're putting the subject line of the venue that you're actually addressing rather than just a blind email. A lot of times we just get hello venue, and that's just a turn off immediately. You don't care about our venue, you just want a show anywhere. You might not have history in our market. Tell me about adjacent markets or what kind of numbers you're doing in your home market, even if you haven't played our room before. If you're doing a 500 cap club in Virginia, that's impressive. High quality content is obviously so much more attractive and appealing. Oftentimes I see, just a music video, like I'm just listening to the song. I don't care that much about. And if you get shot room with people in it, it can even just be at a festival. It doesn't have to be a hard ticket show. Like if you're playing at a festival and I know that those people aren't there to see, but if I see them dancing and smiling and I can see that they're responding well to your music, that's something I look for as well. So videos are helpful, but making sure that it conveys like there's a lot of people at my show or the people that are there are really enjoying it, because I don't really care too much about seeing a music video.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Today, my guest is Paul Bacher. He is currently the talent buyer, or some people call that the booker, at the Brooklyn Bowl for both the Brooklyn location, the OG original location, and the Philadelphia location. He had also worked at the Knitting Factory, City Winery, the Cutting Room. He has booked hundreds and hundreds of shows, if not maybe thousands at this point. And we talk everything from talent buying, what that is, the deal breakdowns, for touring acts, guarantees versus cuts of the doors, all that stuff, opening versus headlining, how do you get an opening slot for a touring act, what he's looking for and how he decides who he's going to book at his clubs, and the perfect email pitch, all that stuff. Something that we didn't get into, but I do want to actually note here. As you'll hear throughout this episode and as we get into all the deals, there's no pay to play that he even flirts with. Every band, every artist that plays his venues gets paid. They're not required to sell their own tickets. They are expected to promote the shows, absolutely. But if you're listening to this and a promoter ever approaches you and is like, hey, you can play this hot club, but you have to give me $500 up front, and I'm going to give you 50 tickets, and you got to sell all of them, and then you can keep the profit after that or whatever. Don't do that. Don't pay to play. Don't ever pay to get on a stage. Even the local bands that he puts on a support, he's paying. So, legit promoters, legit talent buyers, legit venues will pay you to play their establishment. If any of them asks you for money, run the other way. They are not legitimate. And most likely they're scamming you, and you don't want to mess around with scams. So I didn't even dignify this practice in our conversation, and you'll hear how he operates and how that all works. This was a fascinating conversation. Anyone in the live music space can learn a lot from this, no matter what side of the booking equation you are on, whether you're a booking agent or a talent buyer or an artist manager or an artist yourself or a band just getting started or a band with 20 years touring experience. You're going to learn a lot from this. It was a fascinating conversation. And I also asked him towards the end, what is the post-pandemic world looking like in terms of club booking and where he's at? Now, this is the Brooklyn Bowl is a 900 cap venue for reference. So they're kind of that the mid-level club range, mid to high-level club range, I suppose. As always, please follow, subscribe this podcast. However you're listening to this right now, maybe just hit pause real quick and hit that follow or that subscribe button so we'll show up in your feed. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And however you're listening to this, if you're on YouTube right now, give us a thumbs up, give me a comment, subscribe. I love reading the comments, and I really appreciate the reviews. If you want the show to keep going, if you're getting something from it, all you got to do is just kind of let me know. And you can do that by subscribing, by sharing it, by giving us a review, or feel free to write in info@aristake.com and let us know what you think about the show, or maybe tell us some guests you'd like us to have on. You can also find us on all the social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Ari's Take. You can find me personally at Ari Herstand on Instagram and Twitter. Visit aristake.com, get on that email list, and that is where we're going to send the most up-to-date, most relevant, most important information about the new music business. Head over to aristake.com, get on that email list. All right, let's kick into the show. Paul Bacher, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ari. Good to be with you, man. How are you?
Great. So I'm assuming, are you coming to me from New York? Is that where you're based? Is that where you live?
I'm actually based in Philadelphia. I moved from New York last year to help open the new venue here in Fishtown.
Yeah, I was going to ask how new the Brooklyn Bowl Philly was, because in my touring days, I never ran into that one. So the Brooklyn Bowl in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, that's the OG, right? And now you have a few other locations, Vegas, Nashville, and now Philly. Is Philly the most recent one that you guys have opened?
Correct. Philly is the baby. Opened in November of last year. November 4th is our opening date with Soul Live and Questlove from The Roots.
Love Soul Live. Man, I saw Soul Live. I was huge fan. I'm friends with Eric Krasno, but I was a huge Soul Live fan back in my college days. I would see them quite a bit. That's a and Questlove, no doubt. That's a great.
Yeah, we call Soul Live the house band of Brooklyn Bowl. We always ask them to open any of the new rooms that we continue to expand into new markets. And Questlove is a fixture at Brooklyn Bowl as well. So it's good
and
to
a fixture
have
of Philly, the Roots. Yeah,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's great. Amazing. So, but you've been a talent buyer for how many years? I mean, you've been in a few different venues. I know I saw Cutting Room, City Winery, and now the Brooklyn Bowl. How long have you been doing the talent buying thing?
I first really got started in 2016 at the Cutting Room and Pianos, kind of splitting my time as an intern between the two, learning the ropes, and then got an opportunity to come on as a buyer for the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn, which was
nice.
Historic concert venue in New York and Manhattan, and then they moved to Williamsburg for about a decade. They actually just announced their final show at the end of August. So sad to see that one closing its doors, but I have a feeling that they'll find another opportunity in New York in the future. And then bounced over to City Winery for a bit, working with that team until their Soho location closed, and they were closed for some renovations to open their new Chelsea location. But in the meantime, I learned that Brooklyn Bowl was looking to expand, and as a concert fan, Brooklyn Bowl was always the place that I gravitated towards the most, and sort of the genre of music I knew that I could have the most impact assisting with. So it was just a great fit for my career identity, and just makes me that much more motivated to do a good job for them.
What's the capacity of Brooklyn Bowl, Brooklyn, and I guess also Philly?
They're both at 900 capacity.
Oh, okay, cool. And I was at Brooklyn Bowl. I saw a show there. Man, it was right before lockdown. I think it was February 2020. I was in town and I saw Scary Pockets there. And Jack Stratton from Wolfpack set in, and cool spot. Like, there's actually bowling happening right next to, like, it's essentially part of the live room. Like, there's people standing there, and right behind you, people are bowling, or the side of you, and that kind of stuff. If you can hang out over there, and I think it's so unique and so cool.
It is. I came on at a time when it was already a tried and true concept, and people were really familiar with the brand and the concept, but having moved to Philadelphia and trying to educate people on what it is, I realized that, it's not that obvious of a concept. So it's been exciting to, educate people on what Brooklyn Bowl is here in Philadelphia. But that is like the unique experience that you have that, aside from having the lanes there, the vantage point that you have of watching a show that close to the stage and the access that the bowling lanes give you is a pretty unique concert experience. Certainly, it feels like you're on the stage in the Philadelphia and the Brooklyn locations if you're on one of those closer lanes. And it's just a vantage point that you're not able to access at any other room that I know.
Yeah, and I see that you sell packages. If you actually want to bowl and catch the show, you can like buy out like 8 tickets or something, or a few lanes, and then you can bowl and you can watch the show, you can bowl, and that's a really interesting experience too.
Yeah, especially in New York, there's so many bachelor parties or birthday parties, special events, corporate outings, that it makes for a cool additional experience besides just having your, watching the show on the GA for the real diehard fan, or if you want to, have some fun and bowl while also eating and enjoying the show simultaneously. It allows for the casual fan to, have something to do as well if they might not be as familiar with the music. So we make sure that our booking is geared towards music that appeals to everyone. And you don't have to be such a diehard fan to know every word or to really enjoy the show, because a lot of the music is just fun party music, funk, soul. And that's the kind of music that, everyone sort of gravitates to and can relate to.
So I'm curious about how you go about booking the rooms in terms of the lineups, because I was looking at kind of the Brooklyn lineup, and there is a lot of kind of tribute acts, I guess. What's the kind of percentage? Like I think I saw, like you're saying, just music that everyone can kind of get into. I saw like a Stevie Wonder and Prince tribute, Beatles, Usher, Beyonce tribute, Talking Heads, Pink Floyd, Fish tribute, like a lot of those kinds of shows. Is that the angle right now? Is mostly shows that people can kind of bowl and enjoy? Or I did see you had a few touring artists as well. What's the breakdown, or what's the angle of focus, kind of like touring acts, bands versus more party nights?
It's very much seasonal. So if you're looking at the calendar right now, the touring bands are all playing festivals. They're playing outdoor shows. They're radiused out from playing the clubs. So this is easily the slowest time of year, is the dead of summer, which is why you'll see more dance parties, tribute acts, and that type of music. As Prince, Stevie Wonder. It's hard to find anyone who's not a fan of that music.
Right.
So a lot of times, it's a safe bet to put a band on like that, especially if they're quality musicians. And knowing that we have, a room full of people who are bowling anyway, it acts as sort of entertainment for them, as well as the casual music fan who just wants to see a lineup. But if you look into October and November, is really the heaviest touring season for the East Coast markets.
Got it.
So I think that's where you'll find a lot less of the tribute acts kind of stuff. Yeah. We also do, we try to do 2 shows a night on Fridays and Saturdays. So we'll typically do a touring artist in the evening, and then change over for some sort of dance party, something that can go late.
Cool.
And whether it's a disco dance party or emo night, those are some concepts that we've had for a while and are very successful and that we're known for. So nice. We try to flip the room as much as possible, and the 4 a.m. curfew in New York helps us extend the night.
Totally.
But to answer your question, it's all seasonal.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's I want to zoom out a bit and just kind of break down for people listening who aren't really familiar with what talent buying is. Can you just explain to me what talent buying is, or / booking, and just kind of what your role is? What do you do?
Sure. Yeah, I represent the venue in securing programming and live events to put on their stage, to attract people to come into the venue, to watch the show, to eat and drink at the bar, to bowl. So I act as a broker for the venue, and I make deals with the broker for the artist, who's the agent. And together we come to an agreement on what a fair guarantee and deal is for the artist in question, so that the artist is taken care of and can cover their expenses, and the venue can do the same, because just like an artist has expenses with gas and hotels and meals on the road, the venue has expenses with rent and insurance and security and box office and bartenders, and in our case, a full kitchen and a bowling staff. So, everyone has expenses to cover. And at the end of the day, if the venue is dark and doesn't have a show, then everyone loses. So we do have to fill our calendar, and a lot of times, you have to just put programming into the room that is going to keep the people who are employed there making money, the bartenders and servers and all of that. So
Sure.
We have an identity and a sort of booking philosophy that we have in bands that we like to see in the room, but at the same time, we are running a business and we need to make sure that we're opening our doors with programming that we feel is within our brand and is also going to drive bar revenue.
Who do you primarily work with for these deals? Are you working directly with artists, with managers, with booking agents? Do promoters come in, outside promoters, indies, bigger ones? Who are you making these deals with?
Mm-hmm. All the above, from some of the most high-powered agents who are representing A-list international talent to working directly with an artist that I see in a bar that I like and go up to and say, hey, I have a country music show coming up in a couple of weeks, and I see you have, a crowd of 50 people here. You're playing a mean pedal steel guitar, and I'll throw you $500 over for the show, and then everywhere in between. So if it's the artist manager who wants to talk with me about it, if they're represented by an agent, it's usually politically correct to deal with the artist agent. And to not go around that person. There are also other promoters who, for instance, in Philadelphia, have been doing shows here and dance parties or such for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they have, a big email list and a loyal crowd, and they'll end up renting the room, and we'll come to an agreement for, hey, they'll rent the room, they'll cover our expenses, our operating expenses, and they'll keep all the ticket revenue. We'll run the show for you. It'll look like Brooklyn Bowl is doing the show, but in fact, you're keeping all the ticket money after we cover our expenses. So there's a variety of different agreements and deals that we make, from a flat guarantee with an agent who's representing an artist to a door deal and splitting the percentage of the ticket sales depending on how well the show does directly with the artist. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn Bowl is unique because for our size, we're still doing a lot of local programming because we like to just have fun bands in the room, and we have a bit of a built-in crowd on weekends, especially. So we can book bands that might not have the biggest draw, but we know are very entertaining and talented, and that will entertain a crowd who's already in the room without having to pressure them to sell tickets the way that some concert venues who are just a stage and a bar and nothing else. They're really under the gun to make sure that whatever programming they're putting in the room, they're confident that it's going to sell a certain number of tickets.
So let's talk more about those deals and get a little bit more into the weeds on it. So you mentioned guarantees. That's something that I think everybody can understand, where you're offering the artist just a flat guarantee, just a check to come in and show up and play the room. And then you mentioned a percentage of the door of tickets. Tell me a little bit more about that deal and how that works. Is that something where, give me the range? Are we talking, is there a difference between, are you all ages, or are you 21 plus, or?
In Brooklyn, we're 21 plus. It varies. Yeah. In the other markets, sometimes 18, sometimes all ages, but we like to be 21 plus.
Okay, so tell me, what is the range? Are you doing like 70-30 split, 85-15? Is it just a set, you get the tickets, we get the bar? What's the percentage? Is there an expenses off the top that you're taking? Is there a range in expenses? Give me a breakdown of that, kind of how that works. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that too is, you touched on a few of them. There are some times where we'll give you 100% of the door after we cover all of our expenses. If it's an artist that we know is going to probably sell out the room. If it's an artist that we're not too sure of, basically we want it's about how confident you are in the show's success. We know that it's an artist that, can command a higher ticket price, right? If we're doing a 60-40 split, 40% of a $30 or $40 ticket is a lot more money than 40% of a $10 ticket. So if it's depending on the ticket price, we will increase the percentage that we offer the artist. So if it's a $40 ticket, sometimes you'll see us go to 75% or 80% to the artist if we are confident that the show's going to sell out. Mm-hmm. But if it's a $10 ticket, we're rarely going above 60% to the artist, only because, the math doesn't allow us to cover our expenses, and expenses are thousands of dollars. So it all depends on how high your expenses are, and what deal that you want. A place like Pianos, the deal was 100% to the artist after the first 10 tickets. So, and you'd book 5 bands a night. every artist would give the house $100. The house would pay their sound man and the bartender the $500, and and that was it. That was the only expenses they had to cover. And then as you work up to City Winery and Brooklyn Bowl levels, you have much more expenses factoring in, and so you need to be conscious that we need to be able to cover some of those expenses with the ticket sales. So you have a gross deal where you're not factoring in expenses. A 60-40 split from $1 is typically a pretty standard deal you'll see, and sometimes you'll scale that out. Okay, 60% from $1. At 400 tickets, we'll bump to 65. At 800 tickets, we'll bump to 70, and really provide incentive for artists to make more money. And that's something we like to see as promoters. A lot of artists are worth a $10,000 guarantee, but some of them will just say, give us 75% of the door because we know that we'll make more money that way. And for us, we're happy because we don't have any risk on the line as far as a guarantee goes. If perhaps the weather doesn't work out, or there happens to be another show of the same genre on that night that we weren't aware of, we're covered in that degree. And then the artist ends up making far more money than the $10,000 maybe if the show does perform well. So we love seeing artists that are confident in themselves and don't require a guarantee because they know that they'll do the numbers. But more often than not, you need to find somewhere in between where it's a modest guarantee versus a percentage of the ticket sales if the show does well. And in that case, it's usually something like a $5,000 guarantee versus 85% of the door after the expenses, which are anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 usually for a club our size.
Oh wow, that's 900 cap club. So what's the difference between $3,000 and $7,000? That's quite a range for expenses. Where does that fluctuate? How does that fluctuate and vary?
It depends on how much security you need to bring in. It depends on how many bartenders. We have a full kitchen. That's a far greater expense than just a bar. We have the bowling lanes. It's another expense. So we're a more expensive room to operate than maybe another club of our size. But in terms of the fan experience, you get to eat, you get to bowl. It's a more fun place to see a show for the most part. And we know that we have that additional revenue from the food and from the bowling. So we can often be more generous with the artists rather than just, leaning on the fact that we have higher expenses.
And you did mention that there are some acts that I guess are more proven that you would do that 60-40 split without expenses, just from $1. We understand that, most acts probably aren't going to cover a lot of the expenses a lot of the time. Saying, okay, we'll give you 80% of the door after expenses on a $10 or $15 ticket, you're probably not even hitting $7,500 worth of ticket revenue. And so, we will, make it easier for them to make money right away because we're not trying to just take all the money. We understand that, we want artists to make money, and and so we'll try to share in the risk and the reward of doing a show together by saying, we're not going to give you any money, but if the show does well, we'll both make money, and you'll make a little bit more than we will. And we probably both won't cover our expenses, but well, from the door though, but you're not sharing the bar revenue, the food revenue, the bowling revenue with the bands, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you can make that there. So it's like you get to keep the bar and the food and the bowling and all of that other stuff, and the band is really only making it on the door. I guess on merch, do you keep any of the band's merch?
Well. It depends. If it's a touring band, yes. If it's a local band, usually not.
And what are we talking and how much you keep of the merch?
Our merch split is 80-20 on soft goods and 100% to the artist on recorded material.
Got it. Okay. So you keep 20% of soft goods. Okay. T-shirts and stuff. Okay. Cool. That makes sense. When is it something where you were to offer, I guess at what point is an act to you proven enough to offer a more generous deal or a high guarantee? What signals to you that this artist is ready for that level of a deal?
It's usually just history in the market. Brooklyn Bowl being at 900 cap, it's usually not an artist's first time playing the market that we're in. So we're keeping tabs. If you've sold out Mercury Lounge or Baby's All Right, we know that you're worth 250 to 300 tickets And then if we add some support bands on that, we can come up with a package that we feel confident can do 500 tickets. We know that at Brooklyn Bowl, the average person spends about this much money per head. And so we can project how much revenue we're looking at for a certain night of the week in a certain month. And with all that in mind, we can, come up with an offer that we think is lucrative for the artist and fair for the house as well. But, so much of it has to do with the time of year. If we're hurting for programming in the summer and an artist says, this is what we need to make it happen, and we know that the artist is good for a certain number of tickets, perhaps we'll make concessions because we need programming.
Sure.
Whereas if it's in a super busy month of the year, like October or April, when we know that the calendar is going to be jam-packed of successful programming no matter what, we can be a little more selective and tight with our deals. So, it's cyclical, it's seasonal. And then, a lot of it is, what's the look that we want? We prefer 21 plus shows. It can be a sellout, all ages pop show where nobody is spending any bar revenue. And, even if, we're giving it's a 60-40 deal and we're covering our expenses, if we don't make any money at the bar, then we probably lose money with the rent and insurance that we have to pay as well. So you're thinking about bar revenue. You're also thinking about the optics of the show that you're booking. And, we have our own identity at Brooklyn Bowl, and there are some artists that we want to be more aggressive to get into the room because we like the look of them on the calendar. And there's other artists that we will not be as aggressive with because, it doesn't matter to us as much if we lose that show.
Cool. That makes sense. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the honky tonk player, the pedal steel guy, and saying how you might discover them at a spot in town. They sold 50 tickets and they're good for 50 tickets, and you want to bring them on an opening slot. Speak to kind of the local artists. And there's a lot of local artists. There's a lot of artists in hometown markets listening right now that may be good for 50 to 100 to 150, 200 tickets locally and would love to get on a touring band's show as the local opener. What would you recommend to artists on how to go about that, whether it's with you or any artist in any market, kind of looking at these venues of similar capacity? How would artists go about that, and what do those deals look like, and what are you looking for in artists when you're needing to put on some local support?
So I'm still in the live business. I know that a lot of artists are being found on TikTok, on Instagram or whatever, but I'm still out 3 or 4 nights a week seeing music. In Philadelphia. Now, a lot of that is because I'm new to the city and I need to get my lay of the land here. But I've, made some pretty quick connections with the funk and soul and jam scene here in Philadelphia just by nature of going out and seeing music. And where I decided to see shows, I did my research on, small concert venues that I know attracted, quality acts. And so for acts that are just coming up and looking to get the attention of national talent buyers and to open for tours, I would say to make sure to identify the smaller clubs, the 200 cap clubs, the 150, the 150 to 300 cap clubs, where you have a better shot of getting more consistent shows, where they're really needing to fill the calendar. Those kind of clubs are usually trying to book 7 nights a week, and being loud about your advertising. The most successful bands I've seen here in Philadelphia have just phenomenal self-promotion, whether they're playing out in the street, in the parks, releasing content on all the platforms I mentioned, in addition to constantly playing and just grabbing attention. And so by nature of my just going out, seeing shows, and then following these artists on social media and constantly being reminded that they exist, when an opportunity comes up that's fitting for them, they're usually the first artists that I think of. And it's obviously genre dependent, but I was out on Sunday, having a drink on the waterfront here, listening to a reggae band, and they were great. The restaurant was packed. I'm sure it was all just because the restaurant was packed. It was just a restaurant. They were just a bar band playing there. But they were really good. They had original music, and I got their information. And if a reggae show comes up that needs support, I'll probably think of them and submit it to the agent.
Awesome.
I'm not thinking that they're gonna blow the roof off the place and sell a bunch of tickets. But a lot of times, we need to fill time as much as we need to, have them sell tickets, because, that opening hour and that changeover in between is additional, time that people will get another drink, and, stay longer at the Brooklyn Bowl. So it's not always just like, can you add tickets to the bill? It's also extending the night.
Right. That's my next question is kind of, if you had to guess, and maybe you ballpark, what percentage or so of shows that come through of touring acts need local support to help sell tickets? What percentage need local support just to fill the time? And then what percentage of acts come through and don't want or need any local support?
The major tours usually are carrying support. Okay. Sometimes international bands, they'll just pick a local from every market. There's definitely, 30% of the shows that we have here are looking for local support. We're always hoping to do we're always prioritizing acts that we know can sell their own tickets. That, if you can do both, fill time and sell tickets, we prefer that than just fill time, But, part of it is the taste of the talent buyer or the promoter. Part of it is it an agent that you work with who has a new band that he wants to promote on this show, and you want to give him a favor so he gives you a favor in the future. It's a lot of quid pro quo stuff like that, the sports stuff. But at the end of the day, if it's me making a push and saying, this is why I think we should, I want to help this act, I think it's a great fit. And, I'll make the case to say, hey, they're worth tickets, even if they're not, because, I think they're a good fit. And I like the look of having them in the room, which I've done a few times here in Philadelphia. And more often than not, it's worked out. Nice. And the bands here in Philadelphia have been very vocal that, for a club of our size, they've been seeing a lot more local bands get opportunities here to support touring shows than some of the other venues in the market. So that's something that we take pride in for sure.
That's awesome. And what do those deals look like for local openers?
Pretty minimal, $250 to $500 to $500 guarantees. But at Brooklyn Bowl, we feed you dinner, we give you drinks. So
it's great.
For a 1,000 cap club, usually $500 support slot is what you're looking at. If it's a really good local, maybe we'll push it to 1,000. But that often takes away from the headliner's guarantee. So.
Sure. And then what do you recommend to artists who get put on as local support for a touring act? What do you like to see from them to kind of get in your good graces, maybe get offered more local spots in the future? How can an artist that gets a local support slot make the most of it?
Obviously just hustle like crazy, don't book a bunch of shows around our show. There's, I'm often surprised when, a band, asks to come on a show and then I see that they book a show 2 weeks later and they're promoting both. We don't have a firm radius clause with local acts, but we assume that, if we're putting you on a touring show, that's your priority and that you're not going to announce and promote other shows within a month or so of that date. Obviously we want to see you consistently, posting, having the show on your website, just promoting the show on your own,
Sure.
Adding you to, add a local element to the show and to galvanize the local fan base, or folks that might not care about the headliner, but want to come see their friends open for a national act in a bigger venue and come out and support. So as much of that like proactive promoting we see is something that I always take note of. And if it's an act that I have to beg to, even announce the show, when we've added you to, the artist artwork and like your name is right there next to a national act. And then, I've had occasionally acts that say, it's not my job to promote your show. And I'm just like, okay. Obviously that those artists are not, in my good graces. But then just like creative ways of doing it too. If they make funny videos, like I like people that get creative, and we're not always going to repost a shout out video. So you don't have to do the whole like, hey, we're playing the Brooklyn Bowl in 2 weeks. So hope to see you. Is sort of a thing that we see a lot. But I don't know. It's hard to get creative these days when people's attention spans are short, and the end of the day, you're just trying to communicate the information. We're playing here on this date. Come see the show. But it's always fun to see people go above and beyond. We had an act get tattooed a QR code on their chest that to show, link to their Spotify account and like promoting our show at the same time. And I was just like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. And so
I hope that wasn't a real tattoo of a QR code.
I mean, he's super tatted up and he's, obviously promoting his band, but like it was amazing. Yeah.
I hope QR codes don't die then, I guess, in 3 years. Whoops. Hope he has access
that's an extreme example of like, that's what I like to see. You can bet your ass that band is my number one go-to.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice. And then you mentioned something earlier about when you're out seeing bands and the ones, what do you like to see from artists, from local artists? You mentioned something about constantly playing or kind of staying top of mind. It's kind of like this this give and take and this balance, because if artists are playing out all the time, then they're gonna spread their audience pretty thin. But then they are top of mind, and they're always on people's radars. How do you recommend artists kind of balance that in terms of being able to say, oh, we can sell 400 tickets because they waited 3 months, 4 months to play, in between shows, versus they're playing every week and they're bringing, 25, 50 people a show, but because they're playing every week, but they're top of mind. What did you recommend in that situation?
Yeah, that is a bit of a catch-22. And it's rare to find an artist that can do both, that can, play out frequently and also do the hard tickets. Yeah. But some of the examples that I've seen here are softer ticket clubs where it's just more of like a bar with a stage in the corner, and you're not really even, maybe it's a $5 cover, or just it's not exactly a hard ticket room, but you're making new fans just by the quality of the music that you're playing. Mm-hmm. And you might be advertising a show that's coming up where you can say, hey, we're going to be on a real stage. This is going to be a real concert. You think we sound good here in the bar. Wait till you see us up with like full production and all that.
Cool.
So building an audience in a place where there's a natural crowd is, that's where I go to hear music. Whether it's a country bar, Skinny Dennis in New York is like a place that, we go to hear music. Time here in Philadelphia is a great jazz funk bar.
Nice.
And these are primarily bars with stages in the corner,
Yeah.
But I've found more than a few acts that I can tell are just like phenomenal quality, that are playing the weekly show there to make some money and to expand their fan base. And, they're gaining their Instagram followers from those bar gigs, and
Sure.
if they get, 10 or 15 followers every week, that adds up. And then when they're ready to say, hey, here's our album release show at, Mercury Lounge, and we're taking a month off from the bar, that could be a good way of doing it. So finding a way to stay in front of people and impress them with their music without forcing them to like buy a ticket to your show would probably be the best compromise there.
Nice. That's great advice. And speaking of QR codes, pop one of those when you're playing the bar to make sure that people can find you and put your name up, and so they know who you are. They can find you on Instagram, or that QR can go to your email sign up or something like that, just to kind of grab those people in the bar. That's great. So talk to me about, Brooklyn Bowl is, I guess, what we would consider an independent music venue. There are music venues out there that are owned and operated by Live Nation, AG, that kind of stuff. Can you break down the difference between indie music venues and, corporate venues, or I don't really know what we call the ones that are run by big promoters?
So Brooklyn Bowl is actually recently a joint venture with Live Nation. So it's
Just
not
kidding.
Owned and operated.
So are you employed by Live Nation right now?
It's a little ambiguous. My email address is Brooklyn Bowl, but okay. I also have a Live Nation email address.
Another one bites the dust.
So it's a partnership. It's not an owned and operated venue, and we do behave differently than those other Live Nation clubs.
In what way?
But in that we have a little more autonomy in the offers that we're able to make to artists because of the nature of our business model, depending a lot on that food and bowling revenue. Whereas, a Live Nation club doesn't really, all they're concerned about is ticket sales.
Sure.
And thus, the deals that they make with artists don't factor really anything in other than that. And so, oftentimes we can spend a little more like drunken sailors.
Gotcha.
But to answer your question, like the biggest difference obviously is just leverage. When you're a part of the Live Nation family, there are other assets, festivals, other clubs that, if you get in with Live Nation from the beginning and you're doing a good job, you pretty much have an inside track to, enjoy and take advantage of those assets, whether it's the House of the Blues in Boston or the Lollapalooza or Governor's Ball.
Sure.
What have you. And it's the same exact thing with AEG and Bowery Presents and Coachella and Brooklyn Steel. And
Golden Voice. Sorry, go ahead.
They've built these ladders that while they can take an artist from the Mercury Lounge to Madison Square Garden, they can also use those as leverage to say, we want you to play this room if you want to play this room or this festival,
Cool.
And so that is something that independent venues can't offer for the most part, a trajectory upwards, Sure. Now, at the end of the day, if a band is on fire and plays a Live Nation room to start, and then they play an AEG room, and then they want to play a Live Nation room, no one is going to say no because they got scorned on the previous round,
Sure.
But for the promoter, it's a fight to keep them within your system for their whole career. There are some bands you'll notice they always do Live Nation rooms or Live Nation tours, and vice versa. The Bowery and the AEG tours. There are some artists that really prioritize playing independent venues and keeping that ecosystem alive, which I think is cool. But I'd say that from the promoter end, having information about what this artist has done in the past and what they do in other markets and what their value is, is the biggest benefit to being a part of that organization. From the artist point of view, when you're starting off on the club level, you're not going to feel a difference between the clubs for the most part.
Yeah, no, that was a great illustration. Laid it out well. I mean, out here in LA, Golden Voice is pretty massive, and runs a lot of clubs like the Roxy or the Fonda, and also Coachella. And it's kind of a perfect, you'll see bands jump from the Roxy, which is like, I think 500, 600 cap, up to the Fonda, which is like 1,200 cap, and then they're on a stage at Coachella the next year. And that ladder that you're talking about, we see that pretty frequently as well. So that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. So talk to me about when let's say an unproven or kind of a newer act is coming to you, whether that's through a booking agent, a manager, or an artist themselves. They haven't really played the market necessarily. What would convince you to book them? What are you looking at other than historical data in town? Or do you just not take chances on acts that have never played the city before?
It depends largely on the team around them. If it's the manager of Black Pumas and an agent that we work with all the time, and he says, "This is my new project. It's awesome, and trust me, we're going to do it." If it's a band I've never heard of that I'm talking directly with the band, I'm not going to do it because I've worked with people who have a track record of success with us, and a lot of the industry is just trust and instinct. Now, if it's a act coming to us that I think is amazing and they sound great and they're coming through like on a routed date and tour, and I need support, and the show is probably not going to benefit that much from having a different band supporting, then like a lot of it is your taste as well.
Cool.
And if a band hits me up and say, "Hey, we're a country rock band with a badass pedal steel guitar," I happen to love pedal steel, and we have a country show that night, then I'm going to probably say yes, especially if you do it for cheap. But again, like I said, since by the nature of our size, we're just not a place where unproven bands get their start. That's why 100 cap, 250 cap clubs exist, to build yourself.
And
you don't just jump to the 900 cap level.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Do you look at online, like streaming numbers, social media numbers, any like data like that, or is it really just hard ticket sales because numbers can be manipulated? But more so, it's just, do you even notice a correlation between streaming numbers and hard ticket sales? You know, we see all the time that artists can get millions of streams because they got thrown on a few playlists, but they can't sell 50 tickets in their home market. So curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we take all of it into consideration. I'm always looking at streams and social following, but nothing speaks louder than your concert history. Perhaps if you've toured, you may have never done a headlining tour, but you toured with a successful band. And if they, wanted to bring you on tour, that's something that speaks to me as well. And so we try to use, all the criteria to make a decision on what makes most sense for us. But if it's an amazing band that I'm personally passionate about, I'll find a slot for it.
Cool.
Whether it was a referral from someone I trust or it just came out of the blue. And I do listen to, the submissions that come in blind.
So let's talk about those submissions. What does a perfect submission look like to you? Lay it out for me. How do you receive it? Is it through an Instagram DM? Is it through an email? If it's through email, talk to me about the subject line. What do you want to see in there? Like, give me the whole, what does the perfect pitch look like to you?
Yeah. So our general booking requests go to our box office, who will then forward it to me, and they'll forward everything to me. And we get things that are just I would like to book December 10th with you with no other information, which is going right in the trash. And then there is, hey, we are a Richmond-based country rock band routing through on these dates. This is our history in the Northeast market. If you might not have history in our market, tell me about adjacent markets or, what kind of numbers you're doing in your home market. It's always just important to let us know what size rooms you're playing. Even if you haven't played our room before, if you're doing a 500 cap club in Virginia, that's impressive, whether or not you've played our market before. Other bands you've played with, festivals you've been on. I've been helping a couple local bands here kind of put together a little pitch deck, and it's typically a beautiful press photo with, Facebook, Instagram, website links at the top, a quick blurb, and then highlights and accolades. 50 show date tour in 2019, supported the Revivalists on this one show. Here's some press. So press, performance history, links, description of the band, and that's about it. Just make it look clean, make it not too long. Make sure that you're putting the subject line of the venue that you're actually, addressing, rather than just a blind email. A lot of times we just get, hello venue, and it's that's just a turn off immediately. You don't care about our venue, you just want a show anywhere.
You're mentioning what sounds to me like an EPK with the photo at the top and the tour history and stuff like that. Do you recommend bands create this EPK, this press page, this one page kind of thing that they link to within the email? Is that what you're referencing? Or are you talking about
I actually put it in I put it in the body of an email. I don't even like the link.
Oh, wow.
So
throw an image in the body of the email is what you're saying?
Yeah, the way I do it, I've built a couple now, and it's a nice centered image. It's smaller press photo, little description, ABC News, CBS News with the hyperlinks, Facebook with the hyperlink, and as soon as I open my email, I see a beautiful press photo. I see some highlights, and if I can see that they took the time to put something together like that, and it's addressed to Brooklyn Bowl or to me personally, then I'll take it more seriously than just, hello, we're looking for a show.
So break this down for me a little bit more, because so this email comes in, it says, so subject line is Brooklyn Bowl, September 15th. And then the email opens with, I'm assuming it would probably get a better reaction if it's, hey, Paul, or something like that, or hey, Brooklyn Bowl talent buy, or something like that, versus just hello. And then I'm assuming there should be a personalized message at the top, not just the photo. Just lay it out for me a little bit. Yeah.
So you're totally right. Make it the personal, let's say subject line, band's name, Brooklyn Bowl 2022.
Okay.
Hey, to whom it may concern, we are a DC-based band looking for some shows out of DC on our East Coast tour in October. We'd love to find a date if you have any avails during this time. We are indie rock band in the variety of War on Drugs or Kurt Vile. See below for additional info, and please let us know if there's any avails we can look at. And then there's that band's name, press photo, quick links, quick bio, upcoming plans, recent highlights, that kind of thing.
Nice. Very interesting. That's cool. And so then it's essentially in your signature. Your EPK is essentially your signature. So it's right there in the email. Normally, what would be found on a band's kind of hidden press page is now you see it right there in the email. So the personalized message, and I that was like 5-6 sentences, which is helpful. I think like bands need to know, like, do they send you 8 paragraphs? Do they give you your whole bio? Yours was straight to the point. It's kind of like, here's who we are, dates we're looking for, the avails, do you have any openings? Here's what we sound like. And then boom, in the bio or in the signature down below is all the pertinent information, tour history, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Upcoming plans, this Firefly Festival,
sick,
recent press here,
press,
headlining shows, 300 paid at the Canal Club on a $15 ticket, and then at the end, thanks for reading. Hope we can stay in touch. All the best.
So that's specific.
So I kind of sandwich it in between a intro. Here's the meat, and then thanks for your time.
Love it. Cool. Super helpful. If an artist is, let's say they have been working it independently, DIY, for a while now. They've built up a pretty solid following in their hometown market. Let's say they're selling 400 or 500 tickets consistently. They're touring regionally, selling, 100, 200 tickets, headlining everywhere they go. They're ready for a booking agent. What would you recommend an artist on how to go about finding a booking agent that's right for them, that can kind of help relieve some of the work and help them get to that next level?
I mean, if it's the scenario you're describing and they're doing 500 tickets consistently and they're, selling a couple hundred tickets outside of their market, I would turn to the promoter that they've been working with in their home market for advice. And, one of the local artists I described earlier just did their album release with us. And this was a band that's playing all the time out on the street. They do a few festivals, and they sold 700 tickets. And they asked me, do you know any agents? And I invited some agents out to see the show. Because I'm a supporter. I knew that one of the agents lived in Philadelphia, and now they're in talks about, representation. So obviously, you need to be able, agents want to see acts that are, buzzing in more markets than just their home market, and that they're, able to, they don't have to draw 500 tickets, but if they're drawing 100 tickets outside of their home market, then I'm sure agents will be interested in hearing about it. And if you've been doing right by a promoter consistently in your home market, I have no doubt that they'd be happy to, start putting feelers out and inviting more industry to the next show. So I would lean on the people who are, partnering with you in your home market, because, agents are always out there looking to sign new clients. There's no shortage of them.
That's great advice. That's awesome. I forgot to ask you when we were talking about that pitch email, do you like to see video of any kind, live or music videos, and even music? We didn't even talk about the music. What else goes in there in terms of the media that someone should include?
Yeah, I have a little string of like Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. And actually, and since when you hyperlink a YouTube link, it pops up as sort of a little image at the bottom of the email, so I can immediately click on it, and
Nice.
I'll do that. High quality content is like obviously so much more attractive and appealing. And if you get shots of a room with people in it, oftentimes I see just a music video, like I'm just listening to the song. I don't care that much about it. Like if I see a video of you at a club and there's a lot of people there, then that's what's really drawing my attention. It can even just be at a festival. Like, it doesn't have to be a hard ticket show. Like, if you're playing at a festival and I know that those people aren't there to see, but if I see them dancing and smiling, and I can see that they're responding well to your music,
Awesome.
that's something I look for as well. Oftentimes when I'm going to see shows, I'm there for the opener and looking around just to see how people are responding to the opener, if they're just talking over them or if they're actually paying attention and enjoying it. And often I'll ask, hey, did you know that opener? No, I didn't, but I really liked them. And so,
Awesome.
Okay, well, that band just won that random person over out of nowhere,
Yeah, so cool.
So videos are helpful, but, making sure that it conveys like there's a lot of people at my show, or the people that are there are really enjoying it, because I don't really care too much about seeing a music video.
Cool. Great. Super helpful. What have you noticed? Fingers crossed, we're kind of coming out of the pandemic. No more shutdowns, no more lockdowns, no more canceled shows. But what are you noticing kind of as we discuss post-pandemic, what this reality is now looking like? What are the biggest differences that you're seeing now versus pre-pandemic versus, how things were working in 2019?
Mm-hmm. I mean, generally, like, artist sales are down, and we're all trying to diagnose what the cause of that is. In our, since we're booking a lot of like jam bands and funk bands that tour, they're touring monsters. These aren't like bands that go on tour every 5 years. Those kind of artists, like Harry Styles, you're not going to see them. You see him if he's Lady Gaga, like Coldplay. Those shows are going to sell out because that it's a once every 5 years kind of thing. But for artists that we do that are just like touring animals, New Orleans bands and Southern rock and jam bands, like that's where they make their money out on the road, and they're touring in the spring and they're touring in the fall. And for a multitude of reasons, from still pandemic reluctance to go back to inside, recession, and then just like general behavior, like evolution of like people who are just not into being around crowds as much anymore, regardless of any pandemic fear. We think all of that is factored into just like a little lighter attendance for some of the more like common touring acts, and people who are going to say, I'll just go see them again next year and skip this round. So so we have to deal with the reality that like those artists like can't take less money than they're used to making out on the road, but at the same time we know that like the numbers are probably not where they used to be pre-pandemic still.
Sure.
And that's a difficult conversation to have when they're partners of yours and they've helped your venue in the past and you want to do right by them, but at the same time, like it's hard to justify paying the same amount of money when the show's not going to perform as well. So that's been a difficult tightrope to walk. And so, some of that you see as a result of if artists need to make the same amount of money, then we need to increase ticket prices. Because if we think that if there's going to be less people coming, then we need to make more money with those less people by increasing the ticket price, because the artist won't take less money. And so that factors into the equation as well. And then, coming with all the artists having been dormant for so long, everybody's coming back at the same time. And so, while our calendar looks stellar in the fall, so does everyone else's. And as we've seen with, rising prices for everyday items, like people aren't going to be going to 4 or 5 shows a week. And so they're going to be selective, and inevitably, it's a competition every night for us with who else is playing in the market. Like, hopefully there's not other competition in our genre, and hopefully, there's not a giant, big sporting event happening on the night. You're always you can never predict what's going to happen. You're crossing your fingers that there's not competition, whether it's on another show, another big event. And so I think we're dealing with more every night competition, more so than we have in the past. I think we just saw like a huge glut of festivals over the summer, and everybody's competing for dollars that aren't there as much anymore. So that's going to be an interesting thing to look at. While everything looks good on paper, we'll see how these shows actually play off.
Great. Well, Paul, this was such a helpful, informative, illuminating conversation. I know that everybody listening to this has really taken a lot from this, and appreciate your generosity and your wisdom and transparency with everything. I know everyone listening to this, there's a lot of info that not enough people reveal, and I appreciate that you were so open about sharing your knowledge and all this info. And I know the artists and managers and agents and everyone else listening appreciates that as well. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
The new music business. I guess there's different ways to interpret the new music business, but for me, like, I've always just gravitated towards the live experience. I've had really moving moments of my life at live concerts. I've grown up playing in bands, and some of the most pivotal moments of my life, I feel like, have been at a concert, whether it's meeting some friends or a girlfriend, or just having a powerful experience listening to a certain song or a certain artist. I've always gravitated towards that experience. And so being able to be, involved in the careers of these incredible artists and the most dynamic and impactful artists of our time, is something that motivates me. Being in that orbit and being able to contribute to spreading the message and promoting that art is something that I would do on my own. I enjoy taking friends to see new music they haven't seen before and turning them on. And to make a living doing that is something I take a lot of pride in, and it motivates me to keep going and see how far it'll take me.
Love it. Paul Bacher, thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you, Ari. Yeah, great to meet you, man.
Today's episode was edited by Maxton Hunter, theme music by Grassroots District, and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.